Vote of no confidence is being held in the Senedd today following the introduction of the new 20 miles an hour speed limit, which is all over Wales in built-up areas. The motion has been levelled against the Deputy Climate Change Minister Lee Waters, who spearheaded the policy. It's been brought by the Welsh Conservatives. They say it's totally disastrous. The lower speed limit came into force earlier this month, and it reduces the default speed limit in built-up areas from 30 miles an hour to 20. The policy had already been trialled in 8 places across Wales before being rolled out across the country, and supporters are hoping it will make the roads less dangerous. They say the effect on journey times is minimal. The policy will save lives and is better for the planet. But it is very controversial. A petition calling for the government to reverse the decision has surpassed 400,000 signatures. Critics are concerned that the policy may cause further accidents as road users grow impatient with the new slower limits. First Minister Mark Drakeford, who supports the policy, says he's received threats to his safety since the new law was rolled out. But what do you think? Do you hope that the lower speed limit will help to make roads safer? Or are you concerned that if you slow down road users, they just get more dangerous because they become impatient? Do let us know. Text Vine 88291. Email vine@bbc.co.uk. And WhatsApp us on 08000 288 291. Gareth Parry joins us, Gwynedd councillor, whose brother died after being knocked down by a car going 28. Andrew Taylor joins us as well, criminal barrister based in Cardiff. Gareth Parry, it's terrible, terrible news about your brother. I know it was a while ago, but this is a reminder that speed kills.
Yes. Let me just clarify. My brother wasn't killed on the road. He was knocked down on the...
I'm sorry, the line isn't really working. Sorry, I really want to make sure I can hear what you're saying, so just carry on and we'll redial. Go on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, my brother wasn't actually killed on the road. He was knocked down in Carnarvon. The driver was doing 28 miles an hour. He never came home. He spent the rest of his life severely brain damaged in the hospital. My argument is, if we can save one family going through what we went through, sure to God it's worth it. My brother would have been 70 tomorrow. We're taking flowers to his grave, not taking him out for a meal.
What about the car which caused his terrible injuries and later death? What can you tell us about the driver?
He was doing 28 miles an hour. The driver's no longer with us. So it was a pure accident, yes, but if my brother would be still alive. But the argument they've got is it's okay outside hospitals, it's okay outside schools. These children don't live outside schools. They've got to walk half a mile to their homes, to crossing A roads in built-up areas. So people don't live outside schools. They've got to walk home.
Understood. Andrew Taylor, help us understand the law here and why you think this might or might not be a good idea.
I don't think it is a good idea. It's not been thought through. It's been implemented in a way that even the Welsh Government now seem to say is rather cack-handed and wrong. And if we look at the evidence, the Welsh Parliament wanted to bring this out and roll it out in various areas of the country. They've never given us the truth about the result of those experimental areas. In fact, the highest amounts of people who are signing the petition, and there's currently over 438,000 people who've signed, are in areas like Alyn and Deeside, where people were subjected to this experiment, didn't like it, knew the folly of what was going on. And what I've seen myself is that people sometimes who say, well, I'm frightened to drive bang on 20 in case I get a ticket, I'll have penalty points and I'll have a fine, so I'll drive at, say, 15 miles an hour. That leads then to a build-up of traffic, and you only need one person in that build-up of traffic who might be late for work or impatient to start overtaking, and that is more dangerous than if, for example, the speed limit had retained. There's a school near where I live, and what we had there before this policy came in was a sign that illuminated and flagged everybody to the notice that when the school was in session, so early in the morning, tea time, when kids are breaking up from school and going home, the speed limit went down from 30 to 20. I am 100% behind that. I'm afraid the message that Mark Drakeford and the Welsh Government are sending out is that once again Wales are declaring a vendetta against motorists. They've cancelled the M4 relief road you feel like a pariah driving a motor vehicle, and at the very time that they tell us we should be using public transport in Wales is a disgrace. You are more likely to see a unicorn than a bus in some areas
All
of
right,
rural
we're winding
Wales.
all over the place here, and we're just discussing the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Gareth, let me take you back to Andrew's comment that you will cause some drivers to get so angry that they drive dangerously if you limit them to 20 miles an hour.
So, when it was 30, people were still driving, like Andrew just said, now 20 past schools. So were they overtaking past schools then? I don't know. But the thing is, Andrew said, they got an outside school saying 20 mile an hour. These children don't live outside these schools. They live in the community. And there was a survey done. It's only Cardiff, Swansea, Newtown, Aberystwyth. And it took 45 seconds longer by doing 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, this is what, Andrew, this is what I don't understand. I don't understand, Andrew, why, if some drivers are going to lose their marbles because you try and make them drive safely, the rest of us should have to say, OK, everyone can go at 30, because these drivers can't control themselves.
Right, let's take it in stages. Wales has one of the lowest rates of children killed or seriously injured in Europe. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. When people at the moment drive outside schools, the vast majority of people on the road drive sensibly and responsibly. Now you say, and the Welsh Government, they portray this myth that it only adds a few seconds. One of the leading bus companies in Wales yesterday said that because of the delays to buses and drivers having to comply with this new rule, they are having to cancel certain buses, reroute certain buses. It puts extra strain on those as bus companies.
Go on, Gareth.
Unicorns, Andrew.
What?
Are we talking about buses or unicorns? Because
We're
in the last
talking about-
statement he said he couldn't get a bus for love of money.
Well, if you live in rural Wales, and if you know people who live in rural Wales, you will know that the train service, the bus service, is not fit for purpose. It's all very well for the government to say, this is done for safety, it's done for environmental reasons. If you drive a car at the low speed that's now imposed upon us, you actually emit more pollution than if you were allowed to drive at the old speed limit. The way in which this has been brought in was...
Andrew, your emissions are based on rests per minute. So if you're driving 20 mile an hour in third gear, doing 1,000 rests per minute, you're just burning as much fuel as you were driving 30 mile an hour in fourth gear, burning 1,000 rests per minute.
Can I just finish? Go on then. Please? Can I just finish? The reason why this has ignited such a debate and such an outcry in Wales, the highest amount of people ever signing petitions before only got to 70,000. We are now over 438,000. We're only a few thousand short of all the people who voted Labour at the last Welsh Parliament election. That's how outrageous this policy is. Now, I speak to people who are not political, they're not hotheads, they're not people who easily join bandwagons, they're ordinary, everyday people who seek to go about their ordinary, everyday lives. And they are incensed. We are the only country in the world in Wales who have a policy like this. And it's all very well for Mark Drakeford to say we're going to be world leaders. This is going to devastate further the Welsh economy. It will cost billions of pounds. And once again, it sends out a signal. In Wales, if you go there, if you're lucky to get through Wales on the M4, you are then going to be limited to 20 miles per hour. I personally don't see any merit in this whatsoever, and I think I'm not alone.
Okay, you go, guys, because you had a bereavement, so you should give me the last word.
To basics here now. You said there's nearly 450,000 that signed this petition to sign against safety of our children, our grown-ups, to save fatal accidents like happened to my brother. But yet, there's a cost of living crisis. Fuel has gone up 30p in the last 3 weeks. And there's nothing mentioned. Nothing.
Well,
I think our priorities are wrong. With 400,000 petitions against the Welsh Government trying to save lives. I don't know. Unless you'd be in the same situation as me and my family have gone through, I think if you can save one family going through the same that we've been through, it's well worth it. But
if the empirical evidence was there, if it was so convincing, Gareth, if it was so convincing, and if the evidence was there,
just one sec.
if the evidence was there, why is it, for example, that the Scottish Government, the Parliament in Westminster, or other countries all over Europe or elsewhere are not jumping on this bandwagon? The reason is the evidence is not there. Let me give you an example. The Welsh Government say once this policy beds in, it will be accepted by the Welsh people. YouGov did a poll even before the policy came in, and there was 61% of the people against it. When they say our people will get used to it, I'll tell you what they won't get used to are the fines, the penalty points, the prosecution notices that are going to be landing on their doorsteps in the next few weeks and the next few months, when they'll say this shows once again the folly of what's going on in Cardiff Bay.
There was a case...
You said you were a solicitor. If you don't break the law, you won't get fined.
Well, there is that.
If our law is 20 mile an hour, if you're doing 20 mile an hour, you won't get that envelope through.
I mean, that's absolutely right, Andrew, isn't it? That if people can't control their foot on the accelerator, they shouldn't be at the wheel.
They shouldn't be, but I think people might say, Jeremy, if you live in, for example, Monmouth, and you are deemed, if you go over the River Wye, to drive safely at 30 miles an hour, once you cross that bridge, why does it suddenly become dangerous for you to drive at 30 miles per hour? One of the things the Welsh Government have not done is to give us the evidence, the proper evidence, of why this is so safe. It will lead to more pollution. It will lead to more frustration. It will cost billions of pounds to the Welsh economy when the Welsh economy is in a terrible state anyway. And what is going to happen here, I'm afraid, is that more and more people are going to get switched on to the idea that they don't like what's going on. And I'm afraid, and it's all very well for the politicians to say it's becoming personal, the Consul General, that's the senior law officer, was reprimanded for saying the Tories were happy about people dying on the roads. That is the senior law officer in the Welsh Parliament. And Mark Drakeford, the First Minister himself, was rebuked by the First Minister, that's the Speaker in other words, for saying that the Tories weren't telling the truth. Now that this policy is being scrutinised, once people realise this policy is wrong and it's something that impacts on their lives, they are doing what most people do.
I said I'd give Gareth the last word because Gareth lost her brother. And tomorrow would have been your brother's 70th birthday.
Yes. Like I said earlier on to your colleague, we're taking flowers to the graveyard tomorrow instead of taking them out for a meal. If we can stop one family going through this, what we're going through tomorrow, it'll be worth it. Andrew, can I say it was nice speaking to you?
Thank you very much indeed. Gareth Parry, Gwynedd councillor, his brother died after being knocked down by a car some years ago. Andrew Taylor, criminal barrister based in Cardiff. You can hear how strongly Andrew feels about these new 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. It just shows, doesn't it, the passion here in this thing where you bring in a 20-mile-an-hour limit in lots and lots of new roads and you get, 400,000 people signing a petition against it. Your views after the Eurythmics. Lena singing, of course, and Gareth Parry was talking to us earlier with Andrew Taylor. Andrew very much against the 20-mile-an-hour limits. They're being debated in the Welsh Assembly today. Sue in North Wales says it's a nightmare. The 20-mile-an-hour limit is ill thought out, it's not evidenced, and it's resulting in civil disobedience on a scale I've never witnessed. Tailgating is much worse. Where the Welsh Government got the "your journey will only take 1 minute longer" from, I do not know. It is complete rubbish, she says. Richard's in West Wales. Every year there are hundreds of pedestrians killed unnecessarily in the UK, and I applaud any lawmakers who are determined to reduce this. But cutting speed limits from 30 to 20 will have little or no benefit. I was a paramedic and the majority of pedestrian collisions were not the fault of drivers, he says. It's interesting. Gary Walker is in Ammanford, which is Carmarthenshire. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Jeremy.
What do you think? What's going on here? Because you've got 20 mile an hour around you as well.
That's right. I will say that most drivers are actually ignoring it and driving at 30. But I've been stuck behind one car doing 10 miles an hour, a bus doing 12 miles an hour, and the people that used to drive at 25 and the 30 are now doing between 10 and 15 in the 20. Maybe they're paranoid about getting caught, but it's a real nightmare.
Well, I was going to say, I hate to say it, but what is wrong if somebody drives at 15 miles an hour? They're just going relatively short distance.
Well, I was stuck behind the bus for 1.5 miles. At 12 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But even 50 miles an hour, it does add quite a bit to your journey.
OK, adds a bit to your journey. Thank you. Megan Merritt is in Barry. Actually, you stay there, Gary, because Megan might disagree. What do you think?
I just called because I'm an ordinary, everyday person, and I'm not incensed. I don't want those words put in my mouth. So for me, I live in Barry. Some of the 30-mile-per-hour roads are now 20-mile-per-hour roads, and it's not really made any difference to my regular drives around town to drop my kids off at different places. There's still, I think also what a lot of people haven't realised is a lot of our 30-mile-per-hour roads are still 30 miles per hour. We've got 40-mile-per-hour roads. We've also got 50, 60, etc. They're not all 20. And yes, there's an element of people getting used to it, but honestly, it's not made a massive difference to my driving
there we are,
experience.
Gary. It's not slowing you down so much.
Well, if they'd gone for 25 miles an hour, maybe people would accept it. But 20, with some people then driving at 15, it's ridiculous.
Well, I think for me, what's done my nutting about this whole issue is that there are people who've gone on their first ever protest march about it, and that's the people I think need to give their heads a bit of a wobble. Back to your earlier caller who spoke about, the bigger issues that are at play in our world today. And if the first time they've ever wanted to physically march is when they've been inconvenienced, I think they need to grow up a little bit. There's other petitions that are out there that obviously haven't got the same number of people writing on them. And there are things that really should be looked at, like reviewing the inadequate funding for schools in Wales or providing accessible mental health services for deaf people in Wales. These are other issues that we should be talking about and having a look at and debating. And it really, it's wound me up something chronic.
I can tell. Stay there. So, Gary, thank you. Stay there, Megan. Amy is in Bridgend, also Wales. Hello, Amy.
Hello. Hi there.
What do you think?
Well, I can sort of agree with your last caller in terms of Barry's quite a busy area, and I can see how in a city environment you may not have noticed a difference. But where I live, the roads have gone from 30 to 20, and some roads have got 3 different speed limits. And to say this hasn't slowed down people who spend their time on the road is crazy. And just going back to that last point about protest, I just cannot believe that Wales have prioritised this with the state of our mental health, the state of our NHS. A customer of mine has been in a corridor for 48 hours, and we're spending money and time on this in Wales.
Yeah,
That's enough for me to take to the streets right now. I don't know about you.
I suppose they think of it, Amy, as a cheap win, because you just got to put up a load of speed signs and you hopefully will save a few lives.
Yeah, a cheap win or a really confusing motoring journey for most people in Wales right now.
Well,
there's so much confusion. There's so much confusion.
All yours, Megan.
I think if someone's driving and they're driving dangerously, like one of your first callers mentioned, or they're overly confused about it, maybe they need to do a little bit more learning or a little bit more driving, or need to have a look at their own skills as a driver. That's what I've sort of reflected from what I've heard about it. I've adapted. And yes, Barry isn't a city, it's a town. We've got loads of different speed limits. I've driven from Pembrokeshire here. I've driven to Cardiff. I've driven lots of places. And the major difference is the rain. The rain's made the biggest difference in my journey time. It's not like from here to dropping my kid off at a club. That drive time, I don't leave any earlier because we get there at the same time.
OK, thank you very much, both of you. Lynn emails. We went to Ross-on-Sea yesterday, and on the way back to Prestatyn, it put 20 minutes on our journey, this 20-mile-an-hour thing. It's really frustrating. I think it's going to cause accidents with road rage or people late for appointments. People saying that their journeys are getting longer. Sandra Westmacott emails, it is total bliss here in Pembrokeshire since the 20-mile-an-hour came in. Crack on, Mark Drakeford. There's something. Somebody loves it. Miley Cyrus used to be young. Bobby Pryor, still young, is with me.
That's the right answer.
Exactly. And we could all talk about 20-mile-an-hour limits, I guess.
Yeah.
Won't tempt you on that. Gus emails, I'm a paramedic working in Wales, and I've seen and dealt with the devastation of a child killed by a car at 30. Adding an extra 1 minute per mile is not much of a price to pay for lives that could be saved. Joe emails, I live in North Wales. The people ranting at each other on social media is so depressing. It's a real echo chamber of anger. But I've never felt so safe walking my small children to nursery. Getting them across the main road outside our house used to be frightening. I feel so much safer now. So it's the 20-mile-an-hour limit. Of course, there are a lot of angry, noisy people, but not everyone is angry or noisy. Some people just think it's good. Anthony Stockman is in Tewkesbury, and he says the speed limit across every town in Wales is absolutely nuts. All it'll do is drive people away from town centres, because if there's a bypass, most motorists will use it to avoid the 20-mile-an-hour zone. The result will be shopkeepers making a lot less money and shop closures. What the Welsh Parliament has done is grand folly. I don't know about you if you live in a city. This city that we're in the middle of here, London, the average daytime speed in the centre is, I saw it clocked, Bobby, at 7.8 miles an hour. So if you could show me the road where you can do 20, I'd be interested. Mick is in Whittick and says 20 miles an hour in Wales marks the end of the tourist industry. We used to go regularly. We won't go anymore. Alex in Brecon says, I live about 5 miles from Brecon, pick up my son from work every day. The round trip is taking approximately 4 minutes longer, which is 8 minutes a day, 6 days a week. That works out to roughly 40 extra hours a year that I'm burning fossil fuels. Lots and lots of people calling in, but as I say, it's 50-50 here. Anne-Marie Bodie emails, last one. I live in Wales on a busy road. Got houses on both sides, and I welcome the 20-mile-an-hour limit. It has definitely made it easier as a pedestrian because the traffic has slowed down significantly. I think Wales has got this right, and I fully support it. I am shocked at how vicious people have been about this. Bobby Pryor, over to you.